Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Colonial Classics. Today is July 13th, 2026. And you heard the news, recording in progress. That means that we are recording this meeting to be put on our YouTube channel later this week. We're also live on Zoom in case we have anybody who is joining us. I don't think we have anybody on Zoom today, but that's what we do. I'm Marcia Hildebrand, the current president of Colonial Classics, and I'm glad to see all of you here. We're going to start, I didn't say that we were called to order either, and we are. It's 11 o'clock. I had to use my gavel, so that's why I did that. All right, we're going to have Larry come up and give us some opening thoughts.
Good morning, everybody. Today's topic to start is, it's strange. It's strange how $20 seems like such a large amount when you donate it to church, but such a small amount when you go shopping. It's strange how everyone wants front row tickets to concerts, but they want to sit in the last row at church. Well, I better get out of here. That's getting me in trouble. Let's try another one. So, you think God can't use you? The next time you feel like God can't use you, just remember, Noah was a drunk. Abraham was too old. Isaac was a daydreamer. Jacob was a liar. There's too much, a whole list in that one. Let's try this one. Well, it must be all right. It doesn't even have a title. When God created woman, he was working late on the sixth day. I can tell right now I'm getting in trouble. An angel came by and asked, "Why spend so much time on her?" The Lord answered, "Have you seen all the specifications I have to meet to shape her? She must function in all kinds of situations. She must be able to embrace several kids at the same time. She must have a hug that can heal anything from a bruised knee to a broken heart. She must do all this with only two hands. She cures herself when sick and can work all hours of the day." The angel was impressed. Just two hands? Impossible. And this is the standard model? The angel came closer and touched the woman. "But you have made her so soft, Lord." "She is soft," said the Lord, "but I have made her strong. You can't imagine what she can endure and overcome." "Can't she think?" the angel asked. The Lord answered, "Not only can she think, she can reason and negotiate." The angel touched her cheeks. "Lord, it seems the creation is leaking. You have put too many burdens on her." "She is not leaking. It is a tear." The Lord corrected the angel. Excuse me. "What's it for?" asked the angel. The Lord said, "Tears are her way of experiencing her grief, her doubts, her love, her loneliness, her suffering, and her pride." This made a big impression on the angel. "Lord, you are a genius. You thought of everything. A woman is indeed marvelous." The Lord said, "Indeed she is. She has strength that amazes a man. She can handle trouble and carry heavy burdens. She nods happiness and love and opinions. She smiles when she feels like screaming. She sings when she feels like crying, cries when happy and laughs when afraid. She fights for what she believes in. Her love is unconditional. Her heart is broken when a next of kin or a friend dies, but she finds strength to get on with it.
Of something. Ooh, there we see, that saved y'all. I was going to have somebody come and dance, but now we've got our mic. All right, so Judy's going to give us our membership report, and then I'll tell you about the treasurer's report, and then we'll go into birthdays.
Today we have 18 members and 7 visitors, one of which we know real well, Matt, our speaker, and somebody who must be related because her name is Beverly Evans also, but she's in the very back with Matt. And the rest of you, if you want to just stand up, if you feel like we don't know you or whatever, you can just stand up and give your name. Of course, we know Jackie also, Albrecht. And then we have Jolene Wines and Fred. Those two right there. And then we have, let's see. Oh, yeah. I must have forgot to put a V by their name, but y'all introduce yourselves. You must, are you Scott and Jessica Miller? All right. I believe, did I cover everybody that's a visitor? Thank you.
Okay. All right. Lois is on a cruise, so I'm giving her treasurer's report. We have currently $1,297.34 in our account. And now it's time for birthdays. I need somebody to take pictures of the birthday people when they come up. So, all right.
Hi, everybody. How are you? Good. Okay. Well, we have a few July birthdays here. Is there anybody? Oh, well, let me go ahead and tell y'all first. First, we have our two of our newer people. We have Jolene Weens on July 5th. Come on up. And Fred Weens on July 2nd. And I think they're related. Okay. And here's for you, and here's for you. Okay.
We're here because we were threatened if we didn't show up.
Okay.
No, that's good.
Okay.
Are we to stay up here?
Yes. And we have Cynthia Duval, and she's not here today. She's July 22nd. And we have David Ayre, who is with Bonnie at the moment, and he's July the 7th. We have Tony and Aida Alonso. Tony is on July 23rd, and Aida is on July 26th. Wow. All right. And then, of course, we have Adana Hilkemeyer, also on July 26th, and she couldn't make it either. I was wondering, is there anybody else who has a July birthday that we're not aware of? Okay, are we ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Classics. Happy birthday to you. Yay. All right. Congratulations.
All right, happy birthday to everybody. Fred and Jolene, I'll need to make sure I get your birthdays accurate so I can put them in the newsletter next year. Okay, I don't think we have much old business. The only thing I can think of is our current donation drive for children's socks and undies. And if you brought any, you can leave them on the table out there. We'll make sure they get to our Wesley nurse for our back to school event on August 1st. And the only new business that I have is some member updates. I did want to share with you that Bonnie Ayre experienced a physical and cognitive episode last Sunday that led to her hospitalization and then her admission to rehab. So she's in rehab right now. I don't know for sure what the plans or prognosis for her are, but keep her in your prayers. And we have other members too. Bill Duvall is recovering. Becky Schweers is recovering from very painful surgery. And so we have a bunch of people that we just want to remember and lift them up and their families for comfort. Is there any other new business that anybody wants me to mention? Games and chess meet tomorrow, right? Oh, that was, the first Monday was last. Oh, so you're going to play tonight and tomorrow for games. Okay, sounds good. All right, well, it's time to get on to what we came for. And I'd like to invite our friend, Matt Evans, to come up and tell us what he's been up to, what his future plans are, and educate us all a little bit about some of this coffee roasting business. So Matt, it's all yours.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you all for having me here. I've been to Classics a number of times, always doing something different, and so y'all must wonder, what is it that I actually do? And that's a good question. My mom is here. She's visiting this weekend, and she often sometimes still asks that question. So what are you doing now? I came here 14 years ago with the intention to just kind of do my master's degree at UTSA and then go on to my doctoral degree. And then I fell in love with a nonprofit out in the Hill Country, the youth orchestras out there, and so I ended up staying and doing that for another 6 years. And through that time, got to book some really incredible acts, Leanne Womack, Ricky Skaggs, Tyler Childers, Robert Earl Keen, and through that, rolled myself into the city and the airport to start an entertainment program there, and then through that career ended up opening up the Rocket Lock and Terra with Legends Global. And in all that time, I've been here at the church doing this in the background. And so this next season of life, as some of you may know, August 2nd is my last day on staff here. That's primarily to do with the job that was the day job. And so I'm now the director of hospitality for the Alamo Dome. And so all the food and beverage operations there are what I manage. But today, the reason I have to leave right after this is I'm hopping on a plane to go up to Dallas because Legends operates AT&T Stadium and we have a World Cup game tomorrow, and so I'll be there helping do that. So I have absolutely loved my time here, and I love music, but I've always been interested, and I kind of go really hard into something. When I fall in love with it, I pursue it and want to learn everything about it. And this coffee thing came up when back in fall of 2024, I was working on producing a charreria, which is like Mexican rodeo, but also nothing like rodeo if you've ever seen it. There's a whole culture around it. It's very popular in Mexico. They have teams. It's an entire season. A lot of money behind it. It is a beautiful, lots of pageantry, lots of athleticism. The horses are amazing. And so I went down to Guadalajara in a series of trips to study this and learn about it because we were going to produce a mini charreria at the Rock. And during my time there, I would stop and get coffee because I thought I liked coffee. I really liked what I know now as a milkshake. I would take lots of sugar and cream and put that into a thing called coffee, and it would stimulate me in a way that, soda stimulates, but it wasn't really coffee. I wasn't really drinking coffee. And so I was down there, and I met in a cafe called Cafe Tetelan, this gentleman named Brian Sanchez, and I stopped there one morning, and I just kept going. I'd heard about this cafe. Hey, you need to check it out. And so I kind of got, man, this coffee is amazing. And every morning he would make me something a little bit different. And in my time there, my tenure in Guadalajara, I asked him, I'm like, man, why does your coffee taste so much different than what I have in the U.S.? He's like, well, what do you have in the U.S.? And I explained, I was like, well, I like Frappuccinos, and he kind of laughed at me. I didn't realize how embarrassing that was until now. I know that was a very silly thing to say to someone that I didn't realize how significant he was. But so he said, well, it's mainly the issue with American coffee is that you don't grow any coffee in the U.S., and so you never have had a fresh cup of coffee. I said, no, I've had a fresh cup. Like, I've made it and then drank it. And he's like, no, that's not what a fresh cup of coffee is. And so began the journey that ended in where I am today and hopefully where we will continue to grow. But that one little seed of not knowing and tasting something and kind of being told there is another way to do it, and then asking, sequential questions saying, well, what next? Well, what do I need to do next? And so the first thing he said was, I was like, well, what if I want the coffee I'm having here in your cafe in San Antonio? How would I do that? And he's like, well, you need to get a roaster, and then you need to roast green beans in San Antonio. I said, that's not a problem. That's easy. I'll go get a roaster. And he says, okay. And so one of my partners that I had met during my time at the Rock and we went roaster shopping, and we found a couple on Facebook Marketplace, and we came back to Brian and we said, hey, we found some. We want these. And again, he laughed at us. And he says, no, come back when you're serious, when you're really serious about this. And we said, well, what does it mean to be serious about roasting coffee? And it's about like a new Toyota Camry is what it means to be serious about it. And so we're like, oh, that's way different. But this conversation about being serious and sort of our association with, being there for a charreria and being around charros and having these conversations in that context is where the name comes from. Fierro means iron in Spanish, but it's also a saying in northern Mexico that means put some iron in it and be serious about it. And so over time, as we had more and more of these conversations, I was told to, Fierro hombre, and I was like, are we fighting now? Is this something that I should be upset about? And he says, no, I'm just telling you to be serious. Like, how long are you going to come down here and ask me every single time you come down here about how to do this in the U.S.? I've told you how to do it. When are you going to be serious about it? I like, fair enough. All right, so we'll be serious about it. I'm incredibly manipulatable. All you have to do is tell me I won't, and I will. It's a lot of people close to me have learned that. Just tell me I won't, tell me I can't, and it's very stubborn. I'll figure it out from here. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I've learned in this journey about coffee, some things that I just had no idea were out there in the world, and that there's this whole subculture of coffee enthusiasts. They're very aware with it. So if you are a coffee enthusiast, this is going to be maybe the first part of this a little bit old news to you. But for the casual drinker like I was, this was a revelation. I had no idea where it came from. I had no idea what it was I was actually drinking. And so hopefully some of that is illumined to you today, and you can go and share this over dinner or over your next cup of coffee. I think one of the things that is most special about coffee to me, and it's most special about hospitality in general, is that's something that it goes two ways. Sure, we can drink coffee every morning and just enjoy the little pickup that it gives us. But when I really, really enjoy coffee is when I get to share it with somebody or share it with some buddies. It's this act of setting aside time in the morning that's sacred, or setting aside time in the evening where you get to share a cup with one another. And it's not really expressly for a point of achieving anything, but it's just about being in communion with one another. And that's what I find so lovely about it. So, let's see if this thing works. Now I know Dan's struggle. History of coffee. And so the very first story of that plant being ingested and something happened, and I think it's probably not a true story. but I'm going to tell it anyway because it's a good story. It's the dancing goats. I grew up on a farm. We had goats everywhere. And goats are already kind of crazy. But an Ethiopian shepherd noticed that when his goats were eating this particular plant, they got really dancy. They went crazy. He's like, my goats go nuts whenever they eat this plant. And so he took it to the local monastery, and they burned the plant because, that's at the time the peak of science. Well, what is it? I don't know. Set it on fire. We'll see what it does. And they noticed it was a very pleasant smell. And so they said, well, that's great. Let's take some of those ashes, and we'll put hot water on those ashes. And that was, colloquially, sort of anecdotally, probably not officially, the very first cup of coffee. And so it starts that far back where there was some folks that discovered this might actually be something that we want to ingest. And so, throughout time, it's developed and made its way through colonization, through Europe, through the Americas. I think it's interesting that we think of it as just this sort of permanent thing that's always been there, but it's still, it's not that old. It only came to the Americas back in the 18th century. And so that's where we started to plant and develop this. Coffee, we'll get to that in a second. And then, so the coffee that we drink, a lot of it's, if you go to Starbucks or if you go to your coffee shops, they're all out of espresso machines. Those didn't even come on the scene until 1938. And so it is still relatively new, but coffee is, in America, the second most popular drink drunk. It's water, coffee, soda. That's how popularity goes. In the world, it's water. Would you guess what number 2 is? Tea. You're absolutely right. Quite a bit of colonialism in the export and import of teas, and then coffee. So it's an incredibly popular drink that's been around for a very long time. A lot of folks it's a part of everyday life. All of the coffee beans in the world only grow in what's known as the coffee belt. And so you'll see that highlighted here. That's the region of the world that can grow coffee. And the best coffee comes from high up. The higher up you go, the more premium your beans are. And that's not necessarily a blanket rule all the time. There are exceptions to the rule. There are farmers who are doing amazing things at 2,000 feet. But really where coffee starts to kick into what we call absolutely premium, really good coffee, all the stuff that we get, is 7,000 feet and above. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of complexity in farming at 7,000 feet and above. It needs to be a warm, damp climate. You need to oftentimes have your fields laid out on elevation, so there's very few automated machines that can execute the harvesting of these beans. And so it's a very difficult thing to do. So once you're getting bulk coffee, that's its own thing. You can mass produce coffee, but the really good stuff is coming from this part of the world. It's coming from high up on mountainsides, coming from damp climates, and this is what's known as the coffee belt. Specifically, the region that we get our coffee from, we have 3 different regions in Mexico, but right now everything we're sourcing is from Veracruz. And so this is one of the fincas that we source from in Veracruz. This is Finca Citlatepec, sits right above 7,000 feet. Absolutely beautiful. Brian, our roaster, goes to these every single month to check in on how the labor looks, making sure it's all equitable, making sure the beans all look really healthy still, making sure that the farmers have everything they need, making sure that, hey, when we go to order our next pallet of beans from you, are they going to be there? And I say, yeah, no problem, they're going to be there. But he'll check up on the fincas to make sure that everything is still operating, making sure that the bean supply is there, and also staying up on trends. There are over 600 varieties of bean and more every single day. And so most of what we drink is an Arabica. Everybody's familiar with Arabica. But the variants of that we use are Mondo Nuevo, Sarchamore, and Bourbon. Probably never heard of that. But if I were saying like Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Noir, it's very much the same conversation. It's just a different kind of cherry that has different characteristics, that grows a little bit better in different climates. And so that is what Brian is often searching. When you get to hear from Brian later, Brian, another beautiful thing about our friendship and our relationship is Brian speaks only slightly more English than I speak Spanish, and entiendo pero no hablo. It's not very good. Coffee grows on trees. I don't know if you knew that. I had no idea, never thought of it, but once I saw it, this was made very apparent to me. So what happens is you've got a blossoming flower that oftentimes is mischaracterized as jasmine. It smells a lot like jasmine. It looks like a jasmine flower. Over the lifespan of that flower, it will die and fall back into itself, and that's how we get the cherry. So the cherry first looks like that green, that's before it's ripe, then it turns red right as it's ripe, and then it's got a very thin skin, a very thin pulp, and 2 beans inside, what we call beans. However, in Spanish, when you refer to it, it's not frijoles, it's granos, so it's a grain, not the actual bean. And so what we see here is sort of the lifespan of what coffee looks like as it develops. We've got pre-ripe, ripe cherries, Then we see the beans extracted there with a little bit of the mucilage, a little bit of the pulp still left on the bean. And then what we call green beans, and I didn't realize how often I said, oh, we ship in green beans, and folks thought I was getting string beans. They thought, all right, well, somehow Matt turns green beans into coffee. And yeah, it'd be a gross coffee. But that's not what it is. So what looks kind of like a yellow bean there, that is a green bean. That's an unroasted bean. It's been processed one of 3 ways. There are only 3 ways you process coffee. And what it means to process is to take it from a cherry to a roastable bean. And so there's a natural process, a wash process, and a honey process. Again, without knowing this, the uninitiated, I was surprised to find out the honey process has no honey involved in it whatsoever. But we're going to first talk about the natural process. So what has been happening since they discovered those cherries can make those goats dance so many years ago is they said, all right, well, we got to get all this extra stuff off of the bean. How are we going to do that? We're just going to set the fruit out in the sun and kind of move them around and kind of rake off all the extra pulp, and that's the natural process. And so every premium coffee bean you have, and probably the more bulk stuff done in Starbucks and Dutch Bros and those coffee, they're processed this way. Basically, you heat them up, all the pulp and skin shrivel off, you kind of shake it off, rinse it off, and that's your coffee bean. There's not a lot of magic in that. It's a fairly simple process. If you're doing it on the farms, it's a very cheap process. There's no water involved, really. There's no electricity. It's just the sun. It takes care of that, and what you get is probably the bean in its purest state. And so most of the coffee we've had and enjoyed is a natural process or some sort of hybrid of a natural, where we're just getting rid of all that extra stuff as fast as we can. The next process that we have is a washed process, and what that means is basically you saturate all that extra fruit. You soak it in there, there's some level of fermentation that gets involved, and what happens there is all of the sugar from the surrounding pulp and skin starts to leach into the bean itself. It starts to find its way in there. And so when you get your beans that taste a little more fruity, a little more winey, perhaps they have some complexity in the flavor that opens up, anything that leaves the chocolate nutty flavor but starts getting us to floral and fruity flavors is typically done with a wash process. And I could see in some of your faces, you're like, what are you talking about, man? Coffee can taste absolutely like a wine. It can be incredibly fruity. It can be incredibly floral. I had no idea that was the case until I started drinking this. But now I'm ruined forever, and we had 2 events this weekend, so I'm not going to ruin you this week. I'm going to ruin you next week. We're going to bring coffee and have it out for church, and so you can try some of those. I'll explain. We've had some of it back there already, but I'll bring some of the really good stuff so we can play with it and see what that looks like. As you can see here in this image, though, the beans float. Kind of looks like if you've seen like the what's the Ocean Spray commercials where Ocean Spray. It looks a lot like that, doing a different thing there. But essentially, we have one of our beans right now done in this process. I'll bring that one next week, and it just produces a phenomenal flavor. And then the third process, the honey process that involves no honey, is you shave the skin off of the cherries, but then you leave it there in the sun to do a natural process with that mucilage on it. And so it produces really rich, savory flavors in your coffee. And so that's where that comes from. And so you can take the same bean and basically get wildly different characteristics 3 different ways on how you process it. And that's not even before you start to roast it. And then you still have to, after it's roasted, take it and put it in your cup somehow. And so we'll talk a little bit about what that process looks like getting all the way to that end. But once it's gone through one of these 3 processes, we have what's left is what we call a green bean, but not your string green beans, as you now know. And then that is shipped up from, again, all of our producers are in either Veracruz, Chiapas, Oaxaca, in that area right now, all Veracruz, shipped up across the border. And our lovely, Customs and Border Patrol oftentimes go through my shipments pretty extensively. For whatever reason, I don't know. But they do tear it apart. I can often tell that it's been gone through because, coffee, there's a mired history with what gets shipped with coffee. But, so far I've never found anything extra in my coffee shipments. It's all just coffee. And that comes from working with people Again, we work with Carlos Cadena, Javier Valdez. All those folks are the growers that we're familiar with. So we know when they box it up and it comes to us, unless somebody grabbed it along the way, it's just our coffee exactly as we wanted it. And so let's see here. Oh, this is Brian. He's going to talk to you a little bit about, I think we're going to turn on some audio here. He did a fantastic job trying to explain a little bit where he comes from, but I think some of the imagery you'll see here. is our roaster, and so I want you to take a look at that, and I'll talk to it a little bit afterwards.
I'm Brian Jair Sanchez. I was born at Guadalajara in 19, I don't know what is the number, but I'm 35 years old, and I've been in the coffee things about 50 years ago, something like that, and that's it. Right now I start in the coffee business for a while, something like coffee shops, sell coffee, coffee roaster, all that. And my really job is find coffee beans and go to the farms and meet some producers and build the bridge between the roast and the farms. Piero is about the ranch life. That word means too many things, so it's good, but for the brand itself, it's the connection between that. The rancho things is a connection with Texas and Mexico things, you know. The charro things, the cowboy things is similar parts. So for me, Fierro, the name itself is about that. Roasting coffee is about the beans itself and how you transform the beans and convert it in products for make beverage, right? But the bean always is alive and always is changing. And my work in there is find the way or the correct way to development the flavors in there to give the best opportunity to extract that flavors to the cup. So it's not difficult, but it's more about the feeling about the bean, about the flavors, and taste it and repeat and find the best way to do it. Right? For me, the Mexican coffee is not about a stronger coffee or too dark, you know. It's more like a softly and delicate flavors. I mean, I find some coffees with the flowers, aromas, all that, and the acidity is good too. It's not the highest acidity in the world, but it's fruity, is wonderful for me. So the difference between, for example, African coffee or a Mexican coffee is about that the delicate, the softly, and the I don't know. I enjoy a lot of the Mexican coffee because the fruity and the delicate parts is in there, and it's really good, right, for me. So that's the different part. Coffee is about connections, you know. For me, it's connection with the bean, connection with the earth, connection with the farmers, with the people in there. And Fierro coffee, for example, is the same for me. It's about the connection with the people, with my partners, and it's about the connection with the bean and translate it to share in here. And that's for me, Fierro. It's a big window to share to the world the coffee that I love, and that's it.
And maybe? There it is. I think we need to cut that extra feed so I can get rid of the reverb. Maybe? This is back there. All right, so I'm going to talk to you about some of the things you saw in that feed. So we saw the roaster. When you roast beans, there's 3 different processes that you need to take it from the green bean to what the roasted bean that we know that we make in the coffee cup. So it drops in that hopper, and you get it up to 200 degrees, and you hold it for a certain amount of time. That's part of the recipe. Then it goes down into this undulating barrel that moves things along and keeps the beans moving. That, again, has to be brought down and then back up to 200 degrees. And then it's separated out into what we commonly see in the roasters, where it spins around there and cools. And every single escalation to temperature, every single cooling window, all of those are components that are changing the bean. And your variety and how you get the flavor, your windows where that's being changed is roughly between 10 and 30 seconds every single time. And so at each one of those steps in the process, Brian is checking the smell. What he means when he says the bean is alive, there's different moisture content in the bean. If you just got them off the branch, they're going to have a certain amount of moisture and oil content in there. If you have been sitting them in your shop for a while, it's going to look one way. But now you've opened the case, and the case has been opened, and they've been allowed to breathe as you're roasting throughout the day. And so the bean has changed again. So a lot of folks, again, the American practice of when we import beans, we want to create data sets where we can say, well, on this bean, I take it to 200 degrees for 12 seconds. I drop it at a rate of 60%. I bring it back to 200 degrees for 26 seconds. I bring it down and I cool it for 45 seconds before I drop it into the bin. I let it sit for 72 hours. That's my recipe. And that's a very American way to do it. We said it's very precise. This is going to give me that bean every single time. And Brian, again, laughs at us when I asked him for his recipe so I could emulate it. And he says, you can't emulate what I do. He says, you could learn. And then, like, the way you play guitar, he's like, in 10,000 hours, so whether that takes you, 2 years or 10 years, you can get to a place where you can understand this, but it is artistry. And so the difference between that consumer coffee that's produced in a way to be consistent in the cup every single time and premium coffee, which is produced to be the best expression of the bean every time, is what separates the worlds that maybe we're familiar with and the world that he introduced me to. He also talks about, in there you see him brewing espresso out of there. And so he has to ask me, where are we going to send this bean? Is this going to a restaurant that's putting it in a machine to drip all the time? Or is this going to a cafe where they're going to put it in an espresso cup? And they're going to make lattes, and they're going to make, cappuccinos, and they're going to do all these different extractions and pools. That changes how he roasts. I think a thing that we'd all be familiar with is, you've heard of a medium roast, a dark roast, a light roast. He's told me to stop saying that as well. We call him the professor, el profesor, because he lectures us all the time. And when I say us, I should have said this at the beginning, but the Fierro Coffee is 3 owners. So it's Pacho de Luna and myself. We met doing the Charreria event. And then Brian is the brains behind the operation when it comes to all the coffee. And so Brian lectures Pacho and I every time we think we've gotten something. We say, oh, well, we have this really insightful question that we've learned from our time here studying cafes in the U.S., and he'll really quickly reprimand us and set us straight again. But he is one of the bigger names in Mexico when it comes to coffee. And I think something that we hadn't realized before we got into this is that coffee in Mexico is kind of isolated. One of the things that we're all very aware with in the news is tariffs and how that impacts different industries. Mexico, for decades, has tariffed every other coffee industry in the world and not allowed any coffee to come in. And so the coffee industry as a whole, if you look up Coffee Belt, even though there are tons and tons, millions of tons of coffee produced out of Mexico every year, it's not on any maps, it doesn't get talked about, it's not in there because they didn't play with the rest of the coffee world. It is a coffee culture thing that they didn't play with Mexico. And so we really haven't had a lot of access to Mexican beans for many, many years. However, a cup of excellence, like the Super Bowl, the World Cup of coffee, it adjudicates the best coffee in the world at that time, and every single year that gets redone. And so coffee is scored on a 1 to 100 scale. All of the best coffee in the world is 80 and above. Only 10% of the coffee in the world ever gets scored that. That's also one of our standards. We don't serve any coffee below an 80. So we have an 83, an 85, and 88. When you get into anything in the 90s, those are the competition winners. Those are coming in at hundreds of dollars per pound for that coffee. It's very, very special. Mexico's won that now twice in the last 10 years. So beans out of Mexico have won Cup of Excellence. So they can't be denied. They're sort of being invited back begrudgingly into the coffee world. But for years, and still to this day, I'll talk to people and I'll say, our beans are from Mexico. And they say, well, I've never heard of coffee from Mexico, but boy, Colombian coffee is the best. Or boy, that, Asian coffee is fantastic. Or Hawaiian coffee, honestly, is one of my favorites. Really, really special stuff. And again, just like wine varietals, there's just different characteristics from coffee all over the world. And so It's not every day that you want to have a really heavy cab. Some days you just want to have a really light white for a hot summer day. And that is the same with coffee. There are some that are really rich and savory, and they're going to sit heavy with a really full mouthfeel, be almost velvety on the tongue. And there are others that are really light and going to be really refreshing as you drink in the morning, not going to leave you with any of that residual nastiness that feels like you've got coffee breath. Like, good coffee doesn't really leave coffee breath. That's another thing I learned. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. It's a clean beverage that doesn't make my breath stink. Or at least I've not been told it does. So anyway, back to some of the stories on how we got here, and I'm monitoring the time. I talked to Marcia, like, I talk a lot if I get set off on something. I can go forever and ever, and so I want to try to, I'm mainly holding myself together with these pictures that I don't get too far and talk about too many different things. But this is one of my favorite stories of our young company so far. We officially started November 1st of last year is when we founded the company. That's the start date. We had a big party out at our roastery. But in the weeks leading up to that, we were promised we were going to have our roaster months before. And it kept getting pushed back, and it kept getting delayed, and it kept getting held up. And so it was at the final step. It was at the border. We'd gotten the check-in. It was at a processing facility at the border in Laredo. And for whatever reason, my partner, who does speak Spanish very capably, was unable to go get it. And so I got sent down to go get it. And if you've ever tried to do business at the border, it's its own unique culture. And so he said, hey, when you go down there, we should plan to have about $2,000 in cash. And I was like, what? And he says, yeah. And he's like, just in case anything comes up. And I was like, all right, well, we'll see. And sure enough, I get down there, and it was lost. It was unable to be found. I had a truck. I was ready to take it back across the border, and I was told, sorry, we can't find it. It didn't come here. I know you have your confirmation, but you're not coming in my facility, and I can't find it. And so that's when I was told, all right, well, what can I do to help you find it? And he says, well, I could get some guys in here, but I need to pay for that labor. And, oh, of course, all right. And he's like, and then there's the registration, so we need to talk about what that costs. So, not all the money that we had brought, but a considerable amount of it later. I did get this box, and I was promised that there was a roaster inside. And so we put it on the back of a truck and started driving it up from Laredo back here to San Antonio. You see what the box looks like. It's a very nondescript box, but we know that it's made in Mexico, as evidenced by the Hecho in Mexico right on the front. But driving it back, just got the waves from Border Patrol. They didn't stop at all. I think it's the blue eyes. They just thumbs up me and let me keep going. So that was fantastic. We got it back to our roasting facility and realized we didn't have a door big enough to get it in. We don't own the facility we roast in. It's in an industrial park. And so in the middle of the night, we both took out a wall, put it back in, and put the wall back up. And so in the morning when our other colleagues came in, there's a print shop there, and there was a car tinting shop. We went through the car tinting shop, took out their wall, and put it back, but we couldn't find it was French door, or it was a single door before, and it didn't work. We did the math wrong, so it became a French door. And it was kind of funny. For weeks, nobody said anything. They just were like, didn't this used to be? And we're like, I don't know what you're talking about. Don't worry about it. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. So that's Pacho and Brian. They're working on an espresso machine there. We're kind of dialing in our recipes and understanding. That's a La Marzocco. It's probably the espresso machine in the world. It's made in Italy. They're all handmade. The process by which you're making espresso is its consistency in the machine. It is pressure. It's water temperature, water quality. And so all of that takes really a lot of time refining and dialing that in. But for the most part, if you go to a coffee shop and you see that they're using a La Marzocco, it's not a substitute for quality. It's not a substitute to tell you that, these guys really know what they're doing. But if they've spent the money that you need to spend to get one of those, you can probably tell you're in a place that takes coffee quite serious. And so that's one of those tells. When you walk into a cafe and you see La Marzocco, you'll know, all right, these guys or gals are really quite serious about what they do there. When you're making coffee at home, one of the things that I learned is that you need to spend just as much of your resources on how you grind that coffee as how you're brewing that coffee. Coffee as a bean, one of the most beautiful things about coffee is after it's roasted, even if it's the best coffee in the world, it only has 6 to 8 weeks where it's considered good anymore. The oil is the magic in a bean. And so once it's roasted, you've got 6 to 8 weeks where you have a quality product. After that, it's just kind of, it makes your water dirty and gives you a little jitters. Like, that's all it's doing. And so the beautiful metaphor in coffee, the thing that I grew to love, is that with a nice bourbon or with a nice wine or with a car that we want to get one day or a place we want to visit, we can put it off to the future. But the thing we often forget is that we're the expendable part. We don't last. And really good coffee demands that you enjoy it right now. Like, it's like, I'm not going to be good in another 6 weeks. You have to enjoy me every single day. So when you buy that cup, it's this little nod to sort of the impermanence of the church militant. It's like, we're not going to be here forever. We're only here for a little bit of time. You might as well enjoy some good coffee while you're here. And coffee demands that. It doesn't let you hold on to it. I gifted some really good coffee to a person that I had visited in Dallas, and I came back and I saw the bag on their shelf. They're like, I'm saving it for a special occasion. I said, oh no, it's ruined. It's not good anymore. If you wait, it's not premium. It's not going to have all the complexity of flavor. The oil, again, in those beans is the magic, and after you roast it, that oil starts to seep out of the bean. It starts to leave it. And that's why when you grind your coffee, when you grind it, you make it more susceptible to losing all of that oil again. And so that's why really premium coffee is ground and then immediately brewed. And so if you're trying to up your coffee game, the one thing you could do that makes the most difference is get whole bean coffee from anywhere, it doesn't matter, any whole bean coffee, and then wait to grind it until you're just about to brew it. That's going to change everything. Now, as you get better beans, as you get a better grinder, you can get really far down the rabbit hole and eventually own your own coffee company, and it's not a get-rich-quick scheme, that's for sure. It's not happening. But it is a lot of fun to get into. So let's see what I have next in here. Yes. So when we get these beans and we're trying to figure out how to talk to you about flavors, there's the process in coffee called cupping. And it's essentially like a wine tasting, but it's much more academic. Wine tastings are a fun thing you take family to do out in Fredericksburg. A cupping is an intense hour-long process by which Brian just yells at you about your palate. I'm just kidding. He's very nice in it. But what we see there is, you can look at the table, there's 3 different cups on the table. And so in a cupping process, you examine the bean as a whole, you take notes. You then grind the bean and you take notes. And then we pour water at 196 degrees directly on top of that. And you'll notice, how many people here have ever had a shot of espresso? All right, not many. All right, so maybe you've seen a shot of espresso. There's that thing on the top called the crema. It's that light-colored foam that sits up there. That's actually not the good part, but it is really pretty. That is all the carbon dioxide escaping from the beans in that process. It sits up there on top, and you'll know that if there was some to escape, you'll know that you had a good bean. But that's not what you want to savor. And so that process comes up here in the cups, and you have to scoop it all out and clear that away. And then if you've ever done a wine tasting, you know that they ask you to go across your tongue. Same thing with coffee. And so you take it up in a spoon and you suck it through across your palate and you start taking notes on what that flavor profile is. And at the end of the day, there's going to be a group of people that we've all agreed roughly this coffee has this flavor profile, it has this mouthfeel, and this is what we're going to put on the bag and explain this is what this coffee tastes like. And so it's sort of done through consensus. If you want to be a part of one of those, every 3rd Saturday we've started doing them for free out at our roastery, just kind of teach people about premium coffee and what that looks like and what the experience is. And hopefully it's a fun thing. It's not really complicated. You can do it at home. You can add that to the list of things you can do with your friends the next time. Now you'll know how to do a coffee cupping. This is Pacho and I. We got invited to speak on Great Day SA about the coffee. In this one, I'm making a French press. French press is one of my favorite ways to make coffee. And again, as I mentioned, all of the magic in coffee comes from the oil. So when you pass coffee through a drip filter in your Mr. Coffee, you lose some of that to the filter. It's not a bad way to do it. It's just one of the ways to make coffee. And when we're trying to get the most flavor, either out of espresso or a French press, you're getting the minimally reductive process. It's just not taking anything out. And so what happens in a French press is you put coarse ground beans in the bottom, you pour hot water on top of it. I like mine at 194 degrees. You let it sit for 4 minutes, and then you push down that plunger, and it's going to extract all of the sediment out and just give you coffee. It's very, very simple to do. That stainless steel one there is on Amazon for like $30. The little glass ones that everybody has, I think those are like between $12 and $20, and it's just one of the best, richest cups of coffee you can have. If you monitor that, it's just a kettle. Again, not super hot water, 194, 196, 4 minutes, and it's a delicious cup of coffee, incredibly aromatic. So we went and did a brief presentation on what that looks like on Great Day SA. Hey, I was wearing the same shirt back then. Imagine that. We just did a coffee festival on Saturday. If you've never been to a coffee festival, if you love those, they basically open up a fairground, and you get to try a ton of coffees, and there are a lot of people walking around like this because all day long they've been sampling coffees, and they're just buzzing on all the caffeine they've had. But one of the things that I made sure to invite Brian to, we hadn't been able to get him here. He comes every other week to roast in our facility. He flies up from Guadalajara. We're working on getting him moved here. He's got a little girl, absolutely beautiful little girl, Emma. And when there was that most recent outbreak of violence in Guadalajara, he said, I don't think this is where she's going to grow up. And so really trying to sell him on San Antonio. And so there's a little bit of duality in our motive for building this coffee company, is that, this is something that would eventually give them a reason to come out and get to live here in San Antonio with us. But one of the neat things about it is, like, we could love the coffee. We could tell Brian it's great. We can promise to him that, hey, people here like it. But until he saw it, he was truly humbled, because in Mexico, he's just another adjudicator. He, often people disagree with his opinion, but he's like, yeah, but I'm the judge. So, it is what it is. He's worked in his career enough to get there. But to come to the U.S., he really didn't think there was going to be a consumer market for coffee like this. He says, all you Americans, you drink milkshakes, you like it really sugary, you're not going to like this coffee, I promise. Like, you can try, but it's mainly just for you and Pacho, Matt. Nobody's going to like it. And so the very first coffee fest we invited him to, we had the longest line around the building after people started talking about it. It wrapped around the whole fairground, and I got to show that to him, and it sort of was this switch in his mind to realize that this was actually possible, and that folks here, if they were just illumined to what that could be, they want it. And it is, a cleaner coffee, a coffee that's a little more robust and complicated in its flavors. It's something that folks will enjoy. Let's see what else. This is one of our open events. That's Brian doing a roasting demonstration. If you come, again, on one of those third Saturdays, typically we start around 10 a.m. and run till 12. We roast, and you can be a part of that, see what the process looks like. As with anything, the more you know about it, the more you see it, sort of the more in love you fall with the product. I think I enjoy coffee now more than I ever have, because I know how much work goes into making it happen. It's one of the things when I worked for, 4 or 5 lives ago, I was representing artists and helping curate different selections around town. I said, as great as your art is, nobody really cares. Nobody will ever care until you make them love you, and then they're going to love your art. And that's sort of one of the same things that I think about. There are so many coffee shops, there are so many different places to eat, but if you know somebody there, if you know the work that went into it, if you know how important that is, it means a little bit more to you. And then you, in turn, just because I've spoken to you today, now without ever having a cup of Fiero coffee, you are in turn ambassadors. You'll be like, well, I know about this, and let me tell you about, actually, did you know it's a cherry? Did you know there are 3 processes? Do you know? So unofficially, and maybe unknowingly, you've become ambassadors for Fiero coffee. Saturday, we went out and did another festival. We served 600 cups of coffee. Coffee is community. This was, just the other day, we got rained on. And there are people still sitting out there making sure that they could get their cups. And it really is, again, just a testament to the community that coffee inspires in folks. It's something that we've done as a species for thousands of years, and it's something we're going to keep doing. And, in our small part, to bring some new flavors and some new experiences and an opportunity to break bread and share a cup with one another, that's really that's our calling. That's what we're excited to do. It's great that we get to do it as a family. It's great that I get to share it with y'all. And I think at this point, I'm going to open the floor. If you have any questions, I think we can probably do like 2 or 3 of those, maybe, if you have any coffee questions. It could be, hey, I'm making it this way. Is that correct? Or what would you recommend to do differently? Or you could just ask me about anything, like La Cantera area. So if you hit the Dominion turnaround, it's going to be right there after the Lexus dealership. And today, my partner Pacho, the reason he's not here is he's picking up a coffee trailer. So to this point, we've just been roasting. But at the end of August, we will have a little cafe. It's got beautiful oak trees over the top of it. We'll have the trailer out there with the rope lights and the picnic tables, and it'll be right there off of I-10. And so you can come out and get a cup of coffee, hopefully beginning of August. I'll make sure to let y'all know. But again, that's part of this life transition, so there's going to be a lot of focus on that coming up, and that'll be here today, Lord willing. He's going to go pick it up. Once it gets safely parked back on our property, I'll feel much, much better. But the good news is it's only in Houston. I know he's not going to get a hit up for registration fees and extra things pulling it from Houston. So, yes, ma'am.
Well, my understanding, if you have fresh coffee like you're talking about, it is healthier for you also.
Yeah, so I have some horror stories, and I kind of talked to Marcia. I didn't want to ruin everything coffee for you, but for the most part, when coffee sits out after it's roasted, it needs to aerate for 70-ish hours where a lot of that carbon dioxide is being released. In that time, in a lot of facilities, there was a study done, I think back in 2012, about the content of rodent fecal matter and insect particulates that end up in coffee. And it's everywhere. It wasn't just like a little bit, it was all over the place. Coffee also releases moisture perpetually, and if it's not immediately sealed and after it goes through that process, cleaned and sealed, it starts to mold as well. And so you'll hear about people who have reactions to coffee, and oftentimes that's because it's moldy coffee full of insect particulates. So not to scare you off of any big box coffees, but for the most part, everything you buy on a shelf was produced in mass. It sat there for much longer than 6 to 8 weeks, and there's no guarantee that it's clean. There are some that are great, and they've gone a long way to make sure that it stays clean, but during that natural process where it sits out, where it breathes back in the facility, there's just too many spaces for error and for other things to get in it. And so we actually white label, which is where you put somebody else's brand on your coffee, for a health club in Central Florida, a very premier health club. They want to make sure that we track photos of the beans and all the process, and they really just they had, I guess their owner got sick off moldy coffee. And so we said, well, here's pictures of how we roasted it, here's us, bagging it with your batch, and here's us sending it. And so we do that every time, and they pay a premium for, non-moldy coffee. So great question. Yes, Scott?
You mentioned coffee sampling next week. Do you mean on Sunday or Monday?
It'll be on Sunday, sorry.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so I'm gonna bring
Good
in,
answer.
I'll bring in our coffee, and we'll roast it here. And so I'll have 3 different coffees. And so I'll have our Fiero blend, which is gonna have like a candied fruit body with a chocolatey nutty finish. I'm gonna bring in our Huehue Tapan, which, man, these words, I'm getting so good at saying them, but it was difficult at first. That one is a wash process, and the bean itself smells like a chocolate-covered blueberry. It has a very winey feel, like really rich texture. Every time we get that bean in-house, it sells out almost immediately, and so we're working on expanding that. And then I'm also gonna have a Café de Olla, which is what I've had in the back before. Café de Olla is less of what I'd call a premium bean, but it is our premium take on a Mexican tradition of coffee. Typically, with Café de Olla, you take bad coffee, you dump in a bunch of sugar and brown and cinnamon, and it tastes delicious, because what doesn't taste delicious with sugar and cinnamon? Ours, we've reduced that ratio way down. So a cup still only has like 25, 30 calories, but it does still have that characteristic of Mexican Café de Olla. We do grind actual cinnamon into it, and we sprinkle a little bit of sugar in there so it acts as a binding and coagulant for the coffee. And that's what's being brewed. I think most Sundays Lois has been doing some of that. It's incredibly aromatic, really sweet, but still allows the coffee to shine, because you don't want to take a nice bean like that and then cover it up with sugar.
Hi, Matt. Are you familiar with the process of making decaf coffee? And do you have any
Yes.
tips that you recommend?
So we're working on decaf. The problem is it's a supply issue, and that a lot of these folks that are doing the really great beans are not optimized for decaf production. And so we're working on finding it, because there is a tremendous amount of folks that are like, I would like to have a decaf coffee that tastes good too. Right now, decaf is more functional than taste. And so we're working on trying to get some of our growers to grow in a way that we can optimize the bean for decaf that still maintains a lot of the flavor. Because for the most part, what we're taking out of there, all the oil is also where the caffeine is, and the good stuff out of that bean. So there's a certain amount that just is in the bean inherently. But we're working on extracting that while retaining some of the flavor. And so hopefully, right now I'm trying to get the trailer here. Then after that, we're going to crack. There are some companies that are doing a really good job with it. They figured it out. And so we're going to try to do our own version of that. But El Profesor has a plan. He knows how to do it. He just said, we need to get some other things in line first. Yeah.
Since your machine comes from England and it's very technical, what if something goes wrong with it? Do you have a technician that can fix it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Don't wish that on me. No, I'm just kidding. So the roaster is pretty basic. It's basically like a grill in 3 stages. And so the roaster is built in Guadalajara, and that one we can mostly fix on our own. It's burners that are replaceable. It's the chassis itself will last for decades. It's a 50, 60-year machine, especially since it's inside, climate controlled. It'll be fine forever. The Italian espresso machine that comes from Europe, those are a little more fickle. And there are folks here in town that specialize specifically in La Marzocco repairs. My favorite coffee shop in town is Theory Coffee. It's right there by the airport. It's a truck right on the corner of Nacogdoches and 410. And Mark in there, Mark is the guy that owns that. He is also like the professor in his own way. He is playing with particulates per million in the way he includes minerals into the water that makes the coffee. And so he's really nice with it. And he has a La Marzocco that is not a Toyota Camry. That's more like a BMW 5 Series. His is really nice. And so he put us in touch with some guys in Texas that specialize in working on those machines. So you're absolutely right. It is a very, very specialized field. But it's similar to like organ builders and makers. Thank goodness the coffee industry is a little stronger than the organ industry because there's just not anybody that knows how to do that work anymore. Piano tuners, there's fewer and fewer folks who know how to do that work anymore. Luckily, because coffee is still such a robust industry, there are a lot of folks and even more entering into the market now that know how to work on these machines. Yes, ma'am.
Website, or do you have a link that we can go to order some?
Yes, I should have put that up there. That's genius. It's fierocoffee.com, and you can order from there. And we just hit 1,000 followers on Instagram, so we're about to roll out a buy one, get one special. I didn't want to make this a pitch at all. Like, I expect nobody to buy anything. But if you like coffee, I know where you can get some good coffee. Really, I've been so thankful for the support of this community. And so, just tasting it and let me know what you think, that means the world to us. But yeah, fierocoffee.com. And if you punch in code FieroFam, so it's Fiero and then FAM, you'll get a discount on there because y'all are family. Yeah.
So I understand that coffee is rich in polyphenols, and polyphenols are anti-inflammatory. So I would think this audience might.
Yes.
Is there anything you'd like to say about that?
So again, the vehicle by which all that's carried is the moisture content in the bean. The actual grano itself doesn't hold any of that stuff. And so if you've heard of the benefits of coffee, but then you're buying coffee off of a shelf that was roasted 8 months ago, it isn't doing you any good. It's not there. It has long since been gone. It might be there in some traceable amount, but essentially it's mostly like, I used to love the H-E-B, like Pecan Street, like it's a delicious coffee. It's mostly sugar on old beans. Like that's what it is. And so the word I'm looking for is like the homeopathic, that those elements that are included in coffee, the anti-inflammatory, all of that is lessened every time you get farther and farther from just the bean itself. And so any shop that's roasting in town, there are a couple that do it really well. That's where you're going to get the most of that. A fresh bean roasted in that 6 to 8 month window. Enjoy it soon. That's where all that gets to, and it'll feel better too. Again, even as immediate as your mouth, if you're drinking coffee that's not fresh, it feels like it coats your teeth, and you got to go like rinse your mouth out to get that out of there. That's not how premium coffee tastes. Once you taste it, you get flavor that sits on your palate for a little bit, but your teeth don't have a sweater on them. That's the biggest tell. If you feel like there's a sweater on your teeth after coffee, that's not good coffee. Yes, sir.
Do you recommend a website or a publication or a book to get in deeper in the weeds?
So there are so many. What I would do is I'd reverse engineer a coffee that you like, find out where it's grown, and then kind of take it from there. Every single farm nowadays, every single finca all over the world has social media and a website where they're sharing what they do with their bean. And the stories are so varied and different. And similar to, and Bob and I know this, In the AV world, if you talk to 10 different AV guys, they're all going to say 9 of them are idiots, and I'm the only one that knows how to do it right. It's very similar in the way coffee's grown. Like, they all have an idea about what's right and the way to do it. And really, we're just lucky to have them, and we're lucky to benefit from that. For instance, the bean that is an 88 that Huehue Tapan is a grower, Carlos Cadena. His finca sits at 2,000 feet. He'll tell you anybody that has to farm above that is just stupid. They're trying too hard. But it's his fermentation process. He ferments in steel vats like you would sour beer. And he puts a little bit of sugar in there as well. And so that kind of gets that process going. And he says, well, if you're clever and creative, you don't need to do that. It's like, yes, but not everybody is you. So I would say find coffee that you like, find out where that's grown, and then kind of go down the rabbit hole from there. That being said, if you're on any kind of social media, just the fact that we had this conversation, I promise I've poisoned your algorithm by being in the room. You're going to see more coffee stuff now. All right. Well, again, thank you all so much for doing this. First time I've been with y'all that I don't have a guitar in my hands, so it felt a little weird. I had to keep touching this or playing with my ring. But again, thank you so much. And August 2nd is not a goodbye. That's just officially there'll be somebody else up here with that job after that. Still going to be in the church, still love this community. I just might be a little more aggressive at pitching my coffee to you at that point. Yeah.
That was fantastic, as we knew it would be. Matt's a great presenter, and we're looking forward to that coffee on Sunday. Remember fierocoffee.com and the code FieroFam. We can use that. Our next meeting is going to be August 3rd, and we'll have a presenter from the Ronald McDonald House. I'm not sure yet where lunch will be that day, but I'll let you know when it gets closer. And then now let's have a blessing for our meal. If Lynn would come up, and then you're all invited to stay for lunch in the Hospitality Center.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, thank you once again for bringing us together. Thank you for this wonderful program. We ask blessings on Matt and his endeavors, and we're thankful that he's going to continue to be a part of our family. Thank you for your love for each of us, for your guidance and your direction. Thank you that we're fortunate to live in a community that is free, that is celebrating this month the anniversary of 250 years. We pray your blessings to continue, guide us in all that we do, and thank you for not only the opportunity to be here as friends and Christians, but to enjoy the bounty of a lunch together and to continue to socialize as we thank you for all our blessings. In the name we pray, amen.
Thank you, and this meeting is adjourned. Enjoy your lunch.